Welcome everybody to this new HelloID webinar release of the June release, which is released just last Tuesday. So as normally with this webinar, we're going to show you the new functionality, and if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat and I will try to answer those questions. Of course, if you don't want to miss the new functionality and also, of course, this webinar, then you can subscribe on this YouTube channel and hit the bell icon, so you will never miss a webinar or documentation video or new product videos before it's released, of course, because we also have a more official product video before we have a release. And this is more a little bit more informal and hopefully some practical tips with this webinar. So we have a couple of new functionalities at this release. So let's start with the new functions. So first off, for service automation, we have a new audit logging, which involves if you make product changes and things like that, you will see who would made a change and which product is changed and which actions and things like that. I will show you that. So let's first log in HelloID as an admin. So log in with my service credentials, and let's go to the admin portal. And as you can see here, I have a couple of products. And what I can do here is say I want to change up, let's say, the Citrix product. And what I want to do is I want to change the name. So let's say it's Citrix with capital C, I don't know, something like that. And when I save it, normally it just works fine, right? The product is just saved, and we can, of course, turn it back and save it again. Nothing, there are no changes there. But what has changed is now if we go to the reports, and if we go to service automation and we go to product configuration change, here we can see what is updated and by who. So here you can easily see the Citrix product is updated to Citrix-C, it's updated by me, and of course I changed it back again by me, and the action is updated. So if you create a product and things like that, it's also registered. This is also registered for the actions in the product. So if you add a action to the product or update it and things like that, you will also see that. And here you can see an example of this one. So here you can see the information. An action is updated for the product. The name, is it by API or is it manually changed? In this case, the task is create a group for this tenant, of course. And I did it. I changed it. And that's also not for the actions, but also for the category. So if you create a category or update or change the name of a category that you can assign to a product, you also get a log record. So this makes it easier if there's something is wrong, and you can look at what has changed and what could cause that it's not working now. So you can see if the action is changed or if the product is changed, or maybe a new category is added to the product. And therefore, some other people see the product because you could assign permissions on the category who sees the product and things like that. So it helps with I don't want to say debugging, but to checking your configuration and to check who did what with your products in the admin side, of course. So it's not requesting, because that's something we already had, of course. With the audit logging, but it's more changing the products and the configuration in the admin portal. So now it's easier to see, okay, this product isn't working anymore, did something change, and who did it? Maybe I can ask the person what's really changed. So we don't have the full details what has changed, but just that it's changed and to what it has changed and by who. So that's real important to know. Let me check if there are any questions for this. No questions. And then I will continue. So the other functionality for service automation, let me close this one up and let me go again to the admin portal. And if I go to the delegated forms and I click on here and let's say create, I prepared already a, I think it's create shared mailbox. No. Mailbox maybe, yeah, this one. So what I did here, I already prepared a delegated form, pretty simple. What I want to do is create a shared mailbox using a delegated form. I think it's a normal use case. What I did here is I created already a form with 3 fields: organization, which is a data source, so loading up some data, name and alias. And what is the big change here is if I go to task and I want to create a task to create the mailbox, the shared mailbox, I can now use this input a little bit easier because we have autocomplete. So if I do like this, I can use the form or the requester as data in my task. So because I want to have that organization which is put in the field, so I can in the form, sorry, so I can use that. So I can do form dot and then I can see, okay, my organization, name or alias. So those are the 3 fields. In some fields, in some cases where there is more data, like when a data source is connected and it's in multiple fields or it's a grid, you will see that if this is an object, so you can see this with this icon, and if I click on it and I click dot again, I can see which fields are in that object. So that's pretty easy. So I choose mail domain. So it's pretty easy to use these fields to determine your scripting. And if I go look at it, and if I go to form and I go to organization as an example, which we saw was an object, and it's linked with a data source, and this one is static. You can see here the model definition is naam and mail domain. And of course I can say, okay, no, I don't want to have naam, but I want to have name. So let me change up this a little bit. So now it's correctly, just save it. And I have to change this one, of course, update it. And if I go to task and if I go to form again, organization, now you will see that the naam is now name because it was a misspelled thing. So you see it's automatically updated, so you can use this really easy for the form details. Another thing where you can use it is with the requester details. So that means is that's the person opening the delegated form and executing the delegated form, and here you can see all those attributes of that HelloID user. Of course, here we also have an object with the user attributes, which are custom. You can create your own attributes for a HelloID user. And we have the full set of other user properties that are static in a HelloID user. So, of course, I can also say user attributes and say, okay, I want to use the phone number or something like that, or the department or some account name, whatever you want to. So that makes it really easier to use the scripting because you have examples of which attributes you can use inside your scripting, and it helps, I think, creating these scripts a lot. I forgot to mention in the previous variation, of course, we have the beta functionality for the new way, or the way of we do product actions. So if we go to product and then actions, let me do that again. You will see your actions new. Also, this one are also audit logged. So I showed in the previous, then when you change these actions, it will be logged, but also the new one, it's currently in beta, it's also already logged. So that's, I think, good to know for you guys that also in the future we'll have the audit logging on product changes and actions. But it's still in beta functionality. If you want to see it, how it works, there are a couple of minor tweaks new to that. And I think it's scheduled for in August, if I'm saying correctly, but please check the roadmap.hellod.com. If you want to have a sneak peek on how it works and what you can do with the new actions, please contact your local support department and give us feedback so we can improve that before we release it. And of course, if it's released, the feedback is still welcome, and we can see what we can do. But sometimes it's easier to change something before we release it. So that's the reason why we do beta functionality. Let me check if there are any questions. No, I don't have any questions. So let's go back to the presentation again. So that was it for the service automation new functionality. If you want to see all the notes and all the details of every little change, you can go to roadmap.hellod.com, go to launched in this case, and pick your release, in this case the June release, and then you have a note tab. If you click on that, you will have the release notes, and that contains all the small changes and also the bug fixes and things like that. And you also have a section with the features, and that's purely the bigger features that I show you in this webinar. So let's go to provisioning. For provisioning, we have a couple of new things. First off, if you are using the beta functionality of the new PowerShell system, the beta PowerShell system, we made a couple of changes there, also based on feedback. So the first one is if I go to my fields, and for this I go to, let's show again. First off, we have a preview value here, right? So if you click on preview and you can select the person, so I can change the person here, say Albert Johnson, preview, then you will see which department currently you should have based on the map. But what we didn't have, if you go to the edit and you looked up in complex and you said, okay, edit mapping script, then if you created something here, you have to close it down, apply, close it down, press preview again. So it's a little bit of difficult to use. So what we did now is, based on feedback, is that we put on the preview value underneath the complex mapping script. So here you have a mapping script, and you can just press preview here, and you will see a preview value. So in this case, it's department with the space, and then the department name, which is based on the primary contract of the person. Of course, here we also have the autocomplete, so I have to type in correctly. So here you have the person, and I have my contracts, or I have my primary contract, or I have the name, primary manager, things like that. So of all the person fields that we have, and also with the autocomplete functionality. There is one slight difference between the preview on the fields and the preview in the complex mapping. Because the complex mapping is just for one action, you don't have the ability to select an action here. Because we automatically just select the action that we want to use and where you configure it for. So an action isn't needed to select. But I can change the person here, so that's not difficult. So I can select this one and just say preview, and you will see that it's the same department. Let me see if there's something, another one. Okay, preview. Yeah, so now it changes to ICT, right? Another one thing is if you do a preview here, these fields are in sync. So if you change it here, it will automatically change on your bigger preview for the whole mapping set. So that is just a little bit easier to change it, because if you are mapping and checking it out with this functionality, just by selecting a person again, and let's say, okay, I want to now not action create, but action enabled, of course. I see here, this department double administration. I made a mistake. Then if I go here, I will have the same person again. So it's easier to change up and fix your mistake if you see something in your preview mapping, because these fields are synced. So that's the first functionality for the new PowerShell target system, which is still in beta. Of course, again, the same story with the new actions for products. This also is in beta, and if you want to see it and how it works, you can request it. But do not use this and the other one in production environment. So because there are going to be some changes in code which could break your current setup. So that's the reason why it's not final yet. The other new functionality in this new PowerShell target system is the option to use autocomplete, just like I showed in the JavaScript mapping functionality. We have a autocomplete here. So here you can have, I know there are two objects, so the action context and the output context and the person context. Sorry, there are three. So if you go to the action context as example, you can see the configuration. That's the system configuration. So here you will have your URLs, tokens, API keys, things like that. And if I look at it, I have a base URL. If it's debugging, for this system I use a relation number and a token. But I also have, let's say, a .data, and data is the mapping. So here I have the department field that I just configured. So I will get the value of that department mapping, but all the fields of the mapping are available. So it's a little bit easier to create this and to create scripting and have a little bit help which options you are have for scripting. So another one is the person context, and the person context, of course, as the person or the account. Person difference is the difference between the previous person and the current person. So you can see, okay, this field has changed, so I want to do this or something like that. With the person, you will have, of course, the primary contract, and from the primary contract I get the department as an example. I could use that, but in this case it's easier to use the mapping, of course, because I already have the department map. So you don't want to do this in code, but you want to do this in mapping, because then it's easier to see what happens in the future, and also easier maybe to change how the department is sent to a target system. So please do not use the person context per person a lot anymore. I think mostly focus on the mapping, or try to focus as much as on the mapping with the new system. But it's really neat that you can use this new autocomplete functionality to help. The other one is the output context, so what's sent back. You don't have to send back a object anymore, because we already put or created the object for you. So now you have to only say, okay, output context.success is true as an example. True. So now the action is seen as an success. So it's a lot easier to send back an object, because you don't really have to build the whole object yourself. It's already there. You just have to fill in the parameters with your own data. But that was already told in the previous webinar. So that's new for the PowerShell and the new PowerShell target system, or the beta PowerShell target system. Let me check if there are any new questions. No, there are no. Oh, I see a new question. Is the dollar selected if you double click variables? I don't think so, because I think that's the default behavior with every editor. You mean if I click on this, if the dollar sign is selected? So no, that's not the case. No. And I think in most other editors this is also the case. If you look at Visual Studio Code or something like that, it's also the same behavior. I think the question is why not? Yeah, it's the default behavior, I think, for most of the editors. So I think we use a default editor here, so I think it's also the default behavior of that editor. So that's the reason why. If you want to have it changed, then you can put it in as a feedback item. And then we can look at it, if it's possible, or we can do it. So let's go to the other functionality, and the other one is a little bit differently, and it's not a really new functionality, but it's a first step to the next functionality in the next release, because then we are going to support PowerShell notification systems. So that means that you can create your own notification system. But before that, we had to create a built-in system for the emailing, because you can already create notifications, of course, and you can send emails with that. But we're saying, okay, the email is just like a built-in system where you can send emails with. So you have the configuration where you can configure notifications, and you can do that for a kind of a notification system. So you see that the notifications are now split up in two screens, configuration and systems. And configuration is to create your notification, and you can do that for a system, for a target system, of course, but you can also select your system where you want to send it. And of course now there's only one, but in the next release or in the future we're going to support multiple systems through PowerShell. And if I click on system, you will see here that there's a built-in email system, which you can go into edit. You can change the name if you want, or the description. But I think it's good that you also have the audit logs here, so you can see what is sent using this built-in system. And it is also preparation for the future, because in the future, when we have the PowerShell notification system, you also want to have audit logs, which are added to in the scripting, where you can send the create a SMS PowerShell notification system, or a secure email PowerShell notification system, things like that. So you can see now which emails are sent, and of course if on a person. And now you can just configure your notification as normally. So now you will see here the name, so I can just use test. I can still use my events, so everything is the same just yet, but that's going to change when we go into the next release, where you can select one of the systems, and now the built-in system is automatically selected in the water, so you don't have to do it, but we select it for you. So that is a little change in the UI and how we configure things, but it shouldn't be of any effect for you guys currently. The only advantage is you have the audit logging available in the email system. Of course, it's also available in the report. So if you go to a report, that's also available there. Let me check if there are any other questions. I just noticed that I wasn't on my presentation screen, so you didn't see anything I just talked about the last 5 minutes. Great. So let me show it a little bit quicker again, so not doing the whole talk. So here on the notifications, you will have two different setups, configuration and systems. So configuration, you still create your notifications, and here with systems, you just have the built-in system, and in the future you can create multiple systems here. And if I go to email, you will see here the audit logging for the email. So that's basically it, and of course everything I told before here. We also have the emails, but that's all the emails of the whole platform here in general. So here you can see all the emails that are sent out, and if they are successful, yes or no. But that's not only for provisioning, but it's also for access management and things like that. So not only for that provisioning system. For service automation, there's also a new product. So here you can see the product configuration changes showed earlier. So it's in the report section. Let me check again if there are any questions. No, there aren't any questions. So then I would like to thank you for watching. Those were all the new functionalities. As I mentioned before, if you want to see all the details, go to roadmap.helloid.com, go to Launched and to the June release. And there you have the tab Note, and there are all the release notes, all the changes, all the bug fixes and things like that for this release, so more in detail. If you only want to read new functionality, you can go to the features section. There you will see what I've told today, all the 4, I think, features. You can click on it and you have a little explanation how it works. But also maybe it's easier to rewatch this webinar or just go to the release videos we published last week. If you're into HelloID and you want to have all the latest information, please don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a webinar. I would like to thank you for your attention, and till the next time.